I keep imagining the moment everything changed in the cold silence of Wolfswood. In this alternate reality, Jon Snow was not marching toward the destiny we know. He was only 17, wandering beneath dark pines with Ghost beside him, listening to the distant groan of winter winds. Then the forest itself seemed to stop breathing. The temperature plunged so suddenly that frost raced across branches like living veins. Jon watched the steel of his sword turn white with ice. Even his breath felt heavy. Before he could understand what was happening, a White Walker emerged between the trees. The strange part was not its appearance. The strange part was its calm. It did not attack. It stared directly into Jon's eyes as if recognizing someone long lost. I always find that detail fascinating because it completely changes the relationship between the living and the dead. The Walker spoke and revealed that the Night King had summoned Jon. According to him, ancient power slept inside Jon's blood, power inherited from the oldest magic of the first men. Jon tried to resist, but an invisible force pulled him toward a glowing blue path opening beneath the frozen earth, leading into the forgotten depths of the lands of always winter. As Jon descended, the world above seemed to disappear. The tunnel stretched endlessly through ancient ice, illuminated by pale blue light flowing through the walls. Ghost followed close behind, growling at shadows that moved where no living thing should exist. The deeper Jon traveled, the more memories seemed to whisper around him. He heard fragments of forgotten wars, broken oaths, and voices speaking languages older than Westeros itself. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a cavern so vast it looked like the inside of a frozen sky. At its center stood an enormous throne carved from ice and weirwood roots intertwined together. Upon that throne sat the Night King. He was not raging, he was waiting. When Jon approached, the Night King placed a hand against his chest. Instantly, visions exploded across Jon's mind. He saw ancient Stark standing beside beings made of winter. He saw treaties written in blood and magic. He saw promises exchanged between humanity and the powers beyond the wall. Most importantly, he saw those promises being broken. The history remembered by Maesters was incomplete. The war between the living and the dead had not begun with hatred. It had begun with betrayal. The Night King then revealed the truth hidden inside Jon's identity. Jon carried the blood of Stark and Targaryen, ice and fire, winter and dragon flame. According to the ancient ruler, that combination made him unique among all living people. He was neither fully aligned with humanity nor fully separated from the powers of winter. He was a bridge connecting worlds that had been enemies for thousands of years. This is where the theory becomes incredibly interesting, because the Night King was not searching for a conqueror. He was searching for balance. From the frozen shadows, he produced an ice dagger unlike any weapon ever forged. The blade shimmered with strange symbols moving beneath its surface. Then, he offered Jon a choice. He could return to his old life as the unwanted bastard of Winterfell, forever questioning his place in the world, or he could accept a greater destiny and become the Prince of Winter. Jon looked into the vision surrounding him and realized both worlds were heading toward destruction. He cut his palm with the dagger. When their hands joined, his blood transformed into streams of ice and fire, swirling together like living magic. The transformation was immediate and terrifying. Jon felt every cold wind north of the wall. He sensed buried armies sleeping beneath snowdrifts. He heard distant echoes from countless dead souls connected to the Night King's power. When he opened his eyes again, they glowed an impossible blue. Yet something important remained unchanged. His heart was still human. That balance between human compassion and supernatural power would define everything that followed. When Jon and Ghost emerged from the frozen depths and returned toward Winterfell, winter itself seemed to follow them. Snow gathered around his boots. Frost crept across stones wherever he paused. The moment he entered the courtyard, silence consumed everyone present. Stable boys stopped working. Guards lowered their weapons. Servants stared in disbelief. Catelyn Stark saw those glowing eyes and immediately feared the worst. To her, Jon looked like a monster wearing her husband's son's face. Eddard Stark, however, understood that panic would destroy the family. Standing before the gathered household, he claimed the old gods had chosen Jon for a sacred purpose. Whether Ned believed that explanation or not almost does not matter. He protected Jon when nobody else could. Meanwhile, Robb and Arya did something equally important. They treated him exactly like the brother they had always known. The next major turning point arrived with the arrival of King Robert Baratheon and the royal procession. The king expected feasts, hunting, and memories of old victories. Instead, he found a young man whose eyes glowed blue as moonlit ice. Robert's first reaction was fear. You can almost picture the scene. A warrior king who had faced armies suddenly standing speechless before a teenager transformed by ancient magic. Yet Jon quickly demonstrated control over his new abilities. With a simple touch, he froze an entire well solid. Water became crystal within seconds. Robert's fear shifted into fascination. He saw Jon not as a threat, but as a weapon powerful enough to defend the realm against anything. However, while attention focused on Jon, another secret was preparing to explode. Cersei and Jaime continued their forbidden relationship, believing nobody would ever expose them. Bran Stark accidentally discovered the truth just as he did in the original timeline. Jaime rushed to silence him. The difference is that this version of Westeros possessed the Prince of Winter. As Bran fell toward death, Jon sensed danger and reacted instantly. A massive wall of ice erupted across the window. Bran survived. Jaime and Cersei found themselves trapped inside frozen prison walls that neither could escape. What happens next completely reshapes the political future of the Seven Kingdoms. Instead of years of suspicion, investigation, and manipulation, the truth reaches Robert immediately. Jon presents the captured twins before the king. Their secret collapses under undeniable evidence. Robert's grief transforms into fury. The betrayal cuts deeper than any battlefield wound because it comes from the people closest to him. He orders their execution without hesitation. I think this moment is crucial because it removes the spark that originally ignited much of the realm's chaos, yet consequences never disappear so easily. Hundreds of Lannister soldiers refuse to accept the sentence. Determined to rescue Jaime and Cersei, they draw steel and prepare for battle within Winterfell itself. Then, Jon steps forward alone. No army accompanies him. No shield protects him. He simply raises a hand. Ice spreads across the ground like a living tide. Swords freeze inside scabbards. Armor locks in place. Fingers become too numb to fight. One by one, 200 armed soldiers fall to their knees, not because they are wounded, but because resistance becomes impossible. The most remarkable part is that Jon sheds no blood. He wins through control rather than destruction, proving he is not merely powerful, but disciplined. After the executions, Westeros enters unfamiliar territory. The Lannister influence weakens dramatically. Old alliances begin shifting. Robert continues ruling, but the kingdom has already started changing around Jon. Stories spread from castle to castle. Some call him blessed by the old gods. Others insist he is a servant of death disguised as a Stark. Either way, nobody ignores him. Then fate intervenes again. Robert eventually dies, leaving behind a realm uncertain about its future. Normally, this would trigger devastating wars over succession. In this alternate timeline, many powerful lords reach a different conclusion. They have witnessed Jon expose corruption, prevent bloodshed, and wield impossible power without abusing it. Reluctantly, and against his own wishes, Jon becomes their choice for king. When he finally sits upon the Iron Throne, another unforgettable image appears. Frost creeps across the blades. Ice surrounds the ancient seat of conquest. The Iron Throne, symbol of fire, ambition, and endless conflict, becomes wrapped in winter. From that day forward, people begin calling him the Winter King. Yet despite the crown, Jon never seems entirely comfortable. Deep down, he understands that his connection to the Night King remains unfinished. The true conflict has only been delayed, not resolved. Years pass beneath the rule of the Winter King. Trade improves. Major wars fade. The realm experiences something almost unknown in Westeros: stability. Yet beyond the wall, mysteries continue gathering strength. Ravens from the Night's Watch gradually stop arriving. Reports become scarce. Then, they disappear entirely. Jon recognizes the warning immediately because part of his mind remains connected to the cold forces sleeping in the far north. Something is changing. Rather than sending armies, he chooses a different path. He travels alone beyond the wall. That decision tells us everything about his character. He understands that some battles cannot be solved through numbers or steel. As he journeys north, frozen wastelands stretch endlessly around him. Ancient ruins emerge from snow like ghosts of forgotten civilizations. Eventually, he reaches a plain where more than 100,000 dead stand motionless beneath a dark sky. The sight would break most people. Jon simply continues walking. At the center waits the Night King. Neither ruler draws a weapon, neither orders an attack. Instead, they meet as representatives of two worlds that have been trapped in conflict for centuries. The future of humanity depends entirely upon the conversation that follows in the silent cold. The Night King presents his final offer. The dead do not truly desire endless war. They desire certainty. They desire a balance, preventing either side from destroying the other. He proposes that Jon become an eternal ruler standing between life and death. If Jon accepts, the army of the dead will never march south. The living realm will remain safe forever. At first glance, the proposal sounds tempting, but the cost is enormous. Jon would surrender the ordinary life he never truly had the chance to enjoy. He would become something beyond human, bound to winter for eternity. This is the emotional heart of the story. Throughout his life, Jon searched for belonging. He wanted family, purpose, and identity. Now he finally possesses all three, yet keeping them requires sacrifice. Jon thinks carefully before responding. He knows defeating the dead through war would only create new suffering. He also understands that absolute power can erase humanity if left unchecked, so he creates a condition of his own. Every 100 years, he must be allowed to return to human form for 1 year. During that time, he can walk among ordinary people, remember compassion, and reconnect with the world he protects. Only then does he agree to the ancient pact. The agreement changes everything. Magic older than kingdoms awakens across the frozen north. Winds howl through mountains. Snow rises into the air as if answering an invisible command. Jon's transformation becomes complete. He is no longer merely the Prince of Winter or the Winter King. He becomes the eternal guardian, standing between existence and oblivion. The dead army bows. The threat haunting Westeros for generations disappears without a single final battle. That outcome feels especially fascinating because it overturns the expectation that every conflict must end through violence. Instead, understanding succeeds where conquest would fail. Back in the South, people gradually learn fragments of the truth. They know Jon departed beyond the wall. They know the dead never came. Most never discover the full sacrifice he made. Seasons continue. Children grow old, dynasties rise and fall. Through it all, the realm remains protected by a ruler nobody sees. Every century, Jon returns for one brief year. He lives quietly among fishermen, farmers, travelers, and families who have no idea who he truly is. Those moments preserve the human side of his soul. Then, when the year ends, he returns willingly to the frozen throne waiting beyond the edge of the world. My favorite part of this entire alternate story arrives near the end because it transforms Jon's tragedy into something beautiful. During one of his rare returns, he travels to Winterfell. The castle has changed many times over the centuries, yet certain memories remain untouched. He walks through the crypts beneath the ancient stronghold. Stone kings watch silently from their tombs. Dust hangs in the air. Eventually, he stops before the statue of Lyanna Stark, the mother he barely knew. Imagine that moment, an immortal guardian standing before the memory of the woman whose choices helped create him. For a long time, he says nothing. Then he notices words carved nearby by generations who remembered the legend of the Winter King. The inscription reads, "The boy who became ice so the realm could stay warm." That single sentence captures the entire meaning of his journey. Jon was never destined to be remembered for battles or crowns. He was remembered for sacrifice. He gave up his future so countless others could keep theirs. Standing before Lyanna's statue, he finally smiles, not because his burden is gone, but because he knows it mattered. There is another reason this ending stays with me. Most legends celebrate heroes who return home carrying victory. Jon does the opposite. He protects home by leaving it behind. Every century becomes a reminder that peace often survives because someone accepts loneliness that others never see. The people of Westeros enjoy warmth, laughter, harvests, marriages, and ordinary mornings precisely because one guardian remains awake within the cold beyond memory. When all the clues are connected, the deeper theory becomes clear. The White Walkers were never simply monsters. The Night King was never merely a destroyer. Jon's mixed heritage was not important because it made him powerful. It was important because it allowed him to understand opposing sides. Every major event in this timeline points toward that conclusion. Saving Bran exposes the truth. Stopping the Lannister soldiers proves restraint matters more than slaughter. Becoming king teaches responsibility. Accepting the final pact demonstrates wisdom. The entire narrative revolves around balance. Ice needs fire. Humanity needs memory. Power needs compassion. Jon succeeds because he refuses to choose one side completely. He carries both within himself. That is why he becomes the perfect bridge between worlds. Instead of defeating darkness, he learns how to contain it. Instead of destroying winter, he learns how to guide it. And honestly, that idea feels surprisingly fitting for Jon Snow. He was always a character caught between identities, loyalties, and destinies. In this version, those conflicts do not disappear. They finally find harmony, and that harmony saves the realm forever. Like, share, subscribe, and send your questions and theories in the comments section. I'm Liam Harrison from MovieCast, and thanks for staying with me until the very end.